Hi everybody, and a warm welcome back to Maple Leaf Customs. I'm Andrew, and on the bench today is a 1:64 scale Hot Wheels 32 Ford. Mine's brand new and doesn't have a blemish on it, but I am going to cut it right up and use it as the basis for the latest in my Fury Road vehicles, and I'll add it to my growing collection on the Scorched Earth diorama. Some, but not all, of the parts from the 32 Ford are going to be used in this build. So it starts with the breakdown, and you're going to see me using my hobby bench vise regularly in this video for safety reasons. There's a plastic base and wheels, which I will not be reusing. I will make use of a couple of bits out of this chrome interior with the engine and exhaust. No use for the yellow window, goodbye, and here's the main article that I'm interested in today, the die-cast body. The first thing I do with my jeweler's saw is cut off the front engine housing and file that down with a drum sander tool on my Dremel. And now I need to remove that post that protrudes through the back trunk. This time I use a cutting disc attachment, and I flip it over so that I can remove the trunk, and that begins just by drilling a pilot hole, and then I carefully thread my jeweler saw through that, reattach it, and going slowly and softly, removing the trunk. It's got some burrs and picks on that, so I take a moment to file that smooth, and you're going to get the vision here in just a moment as to what it is I want to do. But first, into the paint stripper. From the Fury Road movie, there are several vehicles that I featured, and this one is called the Elvis, although I'm not sure of the etymology of that name. But I am sure that you would enjoy this website by Road Warrior John. As the name of the channel suggests, he's also a wastelands enthusiast. Check it out by following the link in the description. Today's build is from a 3D print file kit that I found on Thingiverse. And you see I laid out all of the pieces. And here I'm having a look at them, doing a couple of dry fits. I left a link in the description for where you can get these files too. They always require a little bit of tweaking and sanding. And you'll see that I put the die-cast cab on top of this. Super glue is fantastic for adhering resin prints to die-cast. It's just great. Put the rear axle that I printed in the back, but I realized I needed some reinforcements, especially along this elongated front half of the frame. So I cut a couple of styrene pieces and glued them on there left and right, and a little piece across the front as well, just to bolster it and give it some more tensile strength. I didn't use absolutely every piece that came in the STL file kit, but I do put this gearbox on the bottom. And now it's time to fashion a firewall. I'm using up absolutely my last few scraps of styrene. Some sanding and shaping helps that to fit in just right. And where the trunk had been cut out was for a purpose. I'm going to build a little platform, and this is where, in the movie, the war boys stand and work the machine gun that's going to be mounted on the roof ultimately, just like you see in this still pic. Here's the first big change that I make from the 3D printed kit, where the wheels just glue on and they're static. Everything that leaves my shop has got to be a roller. But I do go back to the original Uno interior and engine, and I take off the chrome grille and the exhaust pipes because they look a little bit nicer, in my opinion, than the resin printed parts. Today's video is brought to you by Super Glue. And here's the mount that will house the machine gun. So, all the styrene bits are in place and sanded to fit the contour lines, which was an essential part of this build. All finished. A reminder that you're invited to participate in my channel's 2nd anniversary Porsche Invitational, and then in April, the next big Fury Road vehicle is the Giga Horse. If you enjoy this kind of content, give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and become a new follower of Maple Leaf Customs. That's the very best way you can support me. Share this and pass it along and help spread the word. I thank you for doing that. As I said, I want this to be a roller, and so I'm dry fitting the wheels front and back right now. Notice that I use some dollar store beads for spacers here, so that they're not going to rub up against the body. In order to do that, I had to clip off the wheel hubs from the resin-printed rear axle so that I can put my new axle tube in there. Does not change the ride height. And I'm just testing everything at this point for size and fitment. And it looks like that. Muy bueno. Now it's time to give attention to some of the exterior details, beginning with gunmetal gray paint on the dual V8 engines. The resin printed detail on this part is exceptionally good. The machine gun mount gets the same treatment as do the rear handrails. These are styrene rods that I added here, where the back trunk was cut open and a platform was built. And underneath, the axle gets painted, and for contrast, I'm putting flat black on the resin printed chassis. Gearbox is done in red. And now I'm putting on a couple of thin styrene pieces to emulate some extra framework or suspension. Use your imagination here. And because I use a water-soluble resin that comes out in gray, naturally the wheels need to get painted. This is not true black, it's just off black. And then with a sponge and some acrylic paints, I dab on orange to give a different colored rust appearance here, and this is creating a very nice patina. I've cut down a cheap dollar store brush so that it's very stiff and stubby, and I use that. It gives a different effect when I apply the same acrylic paints to it. Panel liner makes the shot lines stand out very nicely, as you can see here. And it's time for the black wash to go on. First on the bottom, just to dirty everything up. And all over the die-cast body that does not overpower the shot lines. Just add some aging. And if there's any excess, I just dab it off like this. Right, so it's back to some of the scavenged engine parts from the original 32 Ford. I've taken the exhaust pipes off, and I actually used another 99 € donor car to get the same set. So I've got front and rear matching exhaust, which look a little better than the resin printed parts, I thought, which is the sum total of my reasoning for that move. And a separate file from Thingiverse is the machine gun, which I give the gunmetal gray treatment to. Now for the final fitting of the actual rolling wheels, I use a standard straight pin for the front axle, and I can easily crimp the soft end of that. The spacer beads go back into place, and the super glue attaches those, but it's a beautiful roller. On goes the top-mounted machine gun. We're getting very close to the end, but I want to paint up these pistol grips in, let's call it walnut brown. And from the movie, many of the Fury Road vehicles have these posts attached to them, and the war boys climb up on these, and that bends over under their weight so they can jump onto the adjacent car or launch an attack on you. Final weathering is with the Tamiya powders, mostly with the rust and some dusty, dirty wheels, and where it would kick up on the bottom and the side door panels as well. And a channel logo. All finished now, so let's have a closer look. Just the die-cast cab and the exhaust and front grille from the original model. The rest are 3D printed parts, including the wheels and the machine gun. I got a nice rust patina all around that. Very pleased with the weathering look. As it was the first predominantly resin printed custom that I've done, I have to say, with a few strengthening fabrications, it came out terrifically well. I had a great time doing this one. The 32 Ford Coupe has always been popular with hot rodders, including me today, putting a special touch on it to match the film. The biggest difference between the resin kit and my custom is that it's a roller, and that's important to me, even though it's going to spend most of its time sitting on display in a diorama. I think it looks really good in this little one. But the permanent home will be the big scorched earth diorama that I made about a month ago, and as I add vehicles, they'll come and go in that display. Leave a respectful comment below and let me know what you think of the Fury Road Elvis. It's coffee time.